I used to think rich people knew something the rest of us didn't. Every time I opened YouTube, someone claimed they had the secret to getting rich fast. One person said it was crypto, another said real estate. Someone else promised that if I started the right side hustle today, I'd be financially free within a year. The more videos I watched, the more confused I became. Everyone had a different answer, yet they all sounded completely certain. So I decided to stop listening to people selling shortcuts and start asking a different question. Instead of asking, "How do I get rich fast?" I asked, "How did ordinary people actually become wealthy?" That one question completely changed the way I think about money. The first thing I noticed was something almost nobody talks about. Most wealthy people didn't wake up one morning and suddenly become rich. There wasn't one magical investment, one lucky stock, or one business idea that changed everything overnight. Of course, there are exceptions, but for the vast majority of self-made millionaires, wealth was built slowly. It wasn't one giant leap. It was thousands of small decisions repeated over years. That wasn't the answer I wanted to hear, but it was the answer I kept finding. Then I realized I had been focusing on the wrong goal. I thought getting rich meant making as much money as possible. But earning money and building wealth aren't the same thing. You can earn a six-figure salary and still live paycheck to paycheck if your spending grows every time your income does. On the other hand, someone earning much less can slowly build wealth because they consistently save, invest, and avoid unnecessary debt. For years, I believed income created wealth. What I learned was that habits create wealth, and income simply gives those habits more power. So I started looking for the habits that kept appearing over and over again. The first one was obvious, but incredibly important. Wealthy people invest in themselves before they expect the world to invest in them. They learn valuable skills, improve their communication, become better at solving problems, and constantly increase the value they can offer. That made me ask myself a difficult question. If I wanted to earn more money next year, what skill was I learning today that would make someone willing to pay me more? Suddenly, buying another gadget didn't seem nearly as exciting as investing in knowledge. The second habit surprised me even more. Every wealthy person seemed to create a gap between what they earned and what they spent. At first, I thought that meant living an incredibly boring life and never enjoying money. But that wasn't it at all. They simply made sure their lifestyle grew slower than their income. Instead of spending every raise, they invested part of it. Instead of buying things to impress people, they bought assets that quietly grew in value. They understood that every dollar could either buy a temporary feeling or help build a permanent future. That's when I discovered something called the wealth formula. It wasn't a secret equation hidden in a finance textbook. It was surprisingly simple. First, increase your ability to earn. Second, spend less than you earn. Third, protect yourself with an emergency fund and avoid high-interest debt. Fourth, invest consistently in assets that have historically grown over time. Finally, repeat the process year after year. At first, I was disappointed because it sounded almost too simple. But then I realized something important. Simple doesn't mean easy. The hardest part isn't understanding the formula. The hardest part is sticking with it when progress feels slow. While I was researching, I found another pattern that completely changed my perspective. Wealthy people rarely ask, "Can I afford this?" Instead, they ask, "Is this the best use of my money?" At first, those questions sound almost identical, but they're completely different. Imagine you have enough money to buy the newest phone. Most people ask whether they can afford it. But someone thinking long-term asks whether buying that phone today is worth giving up the investment returns that money could generate over the next 10 or 20 years. Every purchase has an opportunity cost. I had heard that phrase before, but I had never actually applied it to my own life. Then I asked myself another question. If building wealth is really this straightforward, why don't more people do it? I think the answer is because the system feels boring. We live in a world where everyone wants instant results. We expect investments to double overnight, businesses to become successful in 6 months, and careers to take off immediately. But wealth doesn't usually work that way. It's built quietly, while nobody is watching, while nobody is clapping, while you're making another investment, reading another book, learning another skill, or saying no to another unnecessary purchase. Those decisions don't feel exciting in the moment, but over time, they completely change your financial future. By the end of my research, I realized something that honestly surprised me. I had spent years searching for shortcuts because I assumed rich people had discovered one. But maybe the real shortcut is realizing there isn't one. The people who build lasting wealth simply commit to a system that most people give up on too early. They don't chase every new opportunity. They don't panic every time the market falls. They don't try to look wealthy. They quietly keep doing the same things that have worked for decades. So, how do you get rich without getting lucky? You build valuable skills. You spend less than you earn. You invest consistently. You think long-term. And most importantly, you keep going long after the excitement wears off. I may not be rich today, but for the first time, I don't feel like I'm guessing anymore. I feel like I'm following a map. And maybe that's the biggest difference between people who dream about becoming wealthy and the people who eventually get there. They don't wait for the perfect opportunity. They simply start walking in the right direction, one decision at a time.